All right, welcome to another episode of DWAI. Yeah, wow, I have trouble saying DWAI.
Yeah,
Like,
it's hard
it's
because
hard.
like
It is hard.
every time Jackson refers to it, he just says DWAI.
Ooh, do I? I kind of
But
like it
he
too.
but he like kind of says it in a very like interesting way. From what I remember, he always said like usually it's in reference. So he'll be talking to somebody and he'll be like, "Oh, this is Jeremy. He's the DWAI guys." And it's very interesting the way he says it. It's he has like how people when they talk, there's like a certain way the word comes out. It doesn't quite sound like the way I'm saying it, but it's very similar. But I don't know. It's an interesting way to say it, I
Yeah,
suppose.
I can imagine. All right, well, okay. So, welcome to DWAI Fireside Chat. What do we talk about? Don't worry about it.
That's
Get
pretty
it?
good.
Get it? Get it? Get
Pretty
it?
good. Pretty good. They
Yeah,
might
yeah,
not
yeah.
get it though.
They might not get it.
This
Yeah.
is the emperor's clothes, basically. Like if you know, you know. I was also thinking, are we calling it fireside chat or podcast?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. I guess whenever the first video actually comes up, we'll decide. I'm just
It'll
used
be
to
in the
fireside
title.
chat. Yeah, I'm just used to fireside chat because that's what we used to call the video we used to make.
Yeah. But
But
that's also like a distinguishing factor.
yeah, that's fair. Fireside. So what do you on fireside
I was
talk?
thinking it would be DWAI fireside chat or cast. Sorry, cast, not
Fireside
chat.
cast. Ooh, that's pretty good actually. I like
Yeah.
that fireside cast.
So
Yeah.
DWAI Fireside Cast, where we
Wow,
talk about stuff you don't worry about.
that is a mouthful.
It is a little bit, yeah. But that's our MO, right?
Mhm. To be a mouthful.
Yes.
All right. So kicking off today, what we got?
Oh man. Cloning autism is just something that's been on my mind lately, primarily because I always have to clone stuff whenever I start any new project, which is like one of my biggest weaknesses.
What are you cloning right now?
Well, I haven't really revealed it yet because I'm so like I guess I'm in the early stages of cloning it.
Ooh.
So I have recently developed an interest in the LVAW clone, which is based in the MCX platform. And I have the base gun, and it has been a journey already just trying to get it to work. So basically, outside of having a gun that only sometimes performs, it has just been very frustrating because it's also, I mean, cloning already is not a cheap hobby. Cloning really specific guns and specific components is very expensive.
LVAW. Low visibility assault rifle. Wow, that sounds way cooler than it actually is.
Assault weapon, I guess,
Assault
is what
weapon.
the
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Assault. What did I say?
Assault rifle.
I'm just, dude. I've got assault rifles on my mind, man. Like that's all I see now.
Yeah,
Okay, assault weapon. All right, all right.
yeah.
I guess you're right. It's not quite a rifle, huh?
It's the LVAW.
Al, Alva, yeah.
If we're gonna play by DWAI,
Because
I have heard people call us that. So
what's
I
the other one? Like LVAO? Is that the other or no? Yeah, no, LVOA.
uh
No, that's the gun.
that's the war sport. Yeah, the
That's
war
the war
sport
sport gun.
LVOA,
Yeah, yeah.
which is like one of the worst guns in the world.
It looks cool though.
It does look cool, but like only in sort of like that pseudo future sci-fi.
Yeah.
You
I kind
know,
of yeah.
I think it's one of those things where it has a place, but it's very specific. But on a practical level, it's terrible, and also it's very expensive.
It stands for low visibility operations application. Okay, that sounds way dumber. Like, okay, I'm not upset that I know it. Like, I thought LVOA sounded cooler before I knew what it like stood for. And it's like if you're gonna make words like like acronyms up, I guess, or abbreviations or whatever up. It's like you couldn't pick something like cooler, you
The
know?
words should be cooler, and then the letters that are that represent it are usually just a jumble of random,
Yeah, like
unless you're very lucky, basically.
or you have to make it work, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
what's a acronym on top? Like sports, the malfunction drill.
yeah.
It happens to work out. Like it just spells sports. Like that's cool. It's like LVOA doesn't spell anything, or it doesn't roll off the tongue. It's like LVOA, Laval, Laval.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's where LVAW is also weird. Like I only say it by spelling out the
mhm.
letters. I mean,
Yeah, LVAW. Yeah, Laval,
yeah,
Laval, Laval,
Laval,
Laval,
Laval.
Laval. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna call it Laval. That sounds French.
Laval,
Laval, Laval.
Laval.
Oh, what's
That's
the rifle? The Laval. Ha
not
ha
the Louvre.
ha.
Wow.
Yeah. So what makes it special then? Like it was like I mean, to
So
me, it
this
just looks like
is
an MCX.
the
You
interesting
know.
thing about it that I think that sets it apart is one, since it uses the MCX platform, you take advantage of a lot of the features. So, for example, folding stock and the ability to
Huge.
shoot it while it's folded, right? So that is
Mhm.
a very big third generation small arms rifle feature. The other aspect of it is that the LVAW specifically is meant as a close range. Um, what's the terminology I'm looking for? Like, it's not like bodyguard, but like almost like
Operations
a.
application? Is that
Yeah, yeah, exactly that, right? Like for example, a lot of the LVAW guys, like the guys who are using these weapons, are often seen with essentially like high value personnel, like they're escorting them.
I see.
So like you usually will see like generals, and there will be like a triangle push man nearby who usually has some kind of LVAW setup. And it's also technically in the PDW lines
I
because of
was
the
I was just
small
gonna
barrel.
say, like, it just sounds like it's like a big PDW
It
at this
is
point. Like,
because
especially the application, right?
but it looks bigger than it actually is because it has a suppressor on it. So PDWs, their advantage is they're very small, but when you put the suppressor on, typically they become almost like rifle sized. The other advantage that the LVAW offers is because of the SD configuration where the rail covers most of the suppressor, you can grip and use the extra real estate and it is suppressed. And especially with 300 blackout, it's actually very effectively suppressed. So it is still a very small weapon.
Okay.
So the LVAWs use the 6.75-inch barrel, and the suppressors that they use are typically around, I want to say, 7 inches or so. So you're looking at about 13 inches barrel length overall, I guess, from end to receiver. And then if you fold the stock, the whole gun comes in pretty small. So realistically, especially on a big guy, it's actually a very small gun.
Now it looks. I mean, yeah, 13 inches. You're not. It's yeah. I mean, it's literally just you just have like 12.5 inch AR.
Well, that's the thing
Like
that's interesting is like even if you had a 12.5-inch AR, you still don't have the suppressor included
right,
into the length.
exactly, right.
So
So
that's where it makes a huge difference because a
and
lot
you
of
can't
people
fold a
forget
stock.
that yes, most of the time they don't count the suppressor length into it.
Mhm.
So you essentially you can basically you can accept the additional length because that a length is part of the suppressor.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So what grinds your gears about it then?
Oh, so many things.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't have an MCX lower, so right
Oh,
now troubleshooting it is difficult because
you faker.
the interesting thing about the MCX is it's meant for you to adapt to regular AR lowers.
Hey,
So you
you
can
know, you
do it.
know, you know who says that? You
Who?
know who says that? The pores.
Hey, that's I feel attacked.
Yeah, yeah. You gonna cry about it?
Hey, at the very minimum, I'm using a Colt lower, so you
Okay,
know.
fair.
But once again, it is one of those things where you know, if you're gonna do it right, you got to have an MCX lower. So that's
Yeah.
one thing. The other thing is the troubleshooting portion of it working. I have been getting a lot of light strikes, and that is something that is a pretty common issue with MCXs across the board. And then on top of that, the acquiring of all the components, which is actually the fun part of cloning. And I say fun like, hey, you should get into cloning, like, because it'll be fun, they said. But yeah, and it
That
is fun, but it's also that is also the pain that like cloners share is the autism that comes with cloning.
Yeah, that sounds like how people get other people into like drugs or gambling. It's like,
Oh, it's even worse than that.
just come gamble. It'll be fun. Come smoke some cigarettes. It'll be fun.
Listen, gambling and drugs are cheaper because if you just do drugs or gamble, eventually you'll just run out of money and hit rock bottom. But if you clone, there is no rock bottom. You'll just keep pulling more and more debt.
Oh God.
So it's like it's worse.
And there's nothing worse than just bad clone, just trash clone. Check out my Mark 18.
I oh God,
Does
this
that
is
does that does,
this
does
is such
that
a
does that
this is
kill
such
you?
a this is such a triggering topic for me because on one hand you want to be welcoming to people who are like getting into the niche hobby that you're into, and I guess cloning isn't actually that niche anymore, but at the same time it's one of those things where like if you really enjoy cloning, like the fun aspect of it is finding like the closest that you can possibly get to the real deal. And then there will be people who are like, oh yeah, I love Mark 18s. Check out my 10.5 inch PSA lower, M lock rail, like hollow sun optic Mark 18, and I'm like, you don't like. Why call it a Mark 18 if nothing on it is shared with what a Mark 18 is, right?
Yeah, they got 10.5 inch. I mean,
But but Mark 18s aren't even 10 and a half. They're 10.3 inch. So it's like one of those like that's like the autism aspect of it is that like that is such a small detail, like 0.2 inches. It's like why do you even care? But at the same time,
hey
if
man,
you're actually into cloning, the whole point is caring.
when you're Asian, every inch counts.
Oh my God. You- that's terrible.
I know, but what do you expect?
I don't know. That's the thing that's so interesting is because cloning is now a widespread hobby, but then there's a lot of people who get into it and they don't understand the nuance of it. They just want to clone it because they play video games or something. And then they just kind of cobble things
Mm,
together and say like, "Hey, check out my, Mark 12 or whatever." And then
that's
they post a picture of it on the internet and like ask people to essentially verify or not verify, but approve of their build. And then people on the internet, of course, shred them to bits. And then basically they get all like sad because, like, everyone doesn't like their build. And then they like go on this fueled rampage of like, oh, cloners are like terrible because they like didn't like my clone that is not anything like a clone at all. So it's just like this process that just keeps repeating. And I think it's interesting to me because it's like for me, I want to build something that is like very similar, like to the T as much as I can. But I also don't want it to be something where it's like, oh, I'm not going to shred someone apart for not getting every detail right. But at the same time, if
uh-huh.
you show me something that is not a clone, then I won't like it. Right.
Wow.
But that's the
I'm not I'm
reality of
not
it.
I'm not
That is
gonna
the
hate you, but I'm gonna be disappointed.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I am a person who doesn't really like other people's builds, period, because it's not my flavor. So, like, you know, if you show me your gun, cool, and you like it, fine with me. But it's like it's very rare for me to come across somebody's gun and really personally like it a lot, because there's a lot of different flavors out there. But
You're talking about their personal gun, not their clone.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So
just
essentially, what it comes down to
yeah.
is like, if you are trying to make a gun that I like, which I do enjoy a lot of clones, and then you put a lot of your own flavor into it, then naturally I'm not going to like it.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
you like the pure breeds basically. If you like, this is an
Yes.
FPR. This is how it rolls off the factory, or this is how it's delivered, basically.
Listen, get your mutt out of my face, okay?
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean it's fair. Like, I think what you brought up is true. Definitely video games. I think in the last few years, no, not few years, probably decade or so, video games have been a huge determining factor in, like, what people like in guns, right? I
Hmm.
remember
Oh
when
yeah.
Black Ops. I remember when Black Ops first came out. They used to have those period correct, well, not period, but like the old school aim points, and then like the Cobra sights. You used to be able to find dirt cheap, dime a dozen. But like, people started cloning them, or they see it in video games like Call of Duty Black Ops or whatever, and they started buying them up, and now you can't even find them anymore. Like the aim point, the 1000s, 2000s, the old, really old tubes. And I feel like I'm seeing that with pretty much every game that comes out. A lot of people end up doing it because, video games, movies, they all have such a big impact on our lives, and especially in shooting.
Oh, because all those kids have money now. Like, they're either, techie industry guys who still play video games a lot from when they were younger, and now they have money to spend on it, or they, I don't know, Twitch stream or something because they're gamers, and then they have money to like spend on this kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, and plus it's like that's what we grew up with.
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of the reason why I like World War II guns still is because growing up, that was the big thing. Like, you remember that period when World War II was the cool thing? We had like Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan,
Yeah.
a Medal
Yeah.
of Honor. Like Call of Duty was World War II, like huge. Like I grew up like heavily. Like M1 Garand is like still like one of my favorite guns, if not my favorite gun, just because it's like I see it everywhere, and it's so cool because Garand ping. But
Not great. Not Grantham. You're too good to have Grantham.
no, just learn how to reload. It's not that hard. Like, I,
Oof.
it's
Oof.
I don't know. I mean, like, I'll call it. I'll call people out, but like, I think you have to be a little bit smooth brained to get Grand Thumb, because it's pretty. I don't know. Like, I could see it in the heat of combat, or maybe adrenaline pumping, or other. You're not paying attention, and then maybe the gun is very worn. I could see it, maybe, but if you properly reload, as in if you blade your hand and then use the bottom of your hand as kind of a block, you can actually stop the bolt, so you would never get Grantham. Like, and it actually makes it reload faster because you push it in, push your hand down, that engages the bolt, and then which lowers it from the I guess bolt catch and sends it forward. It's the right way to reload and much faster. So, and doing that basically eliminates like 99.9% of all Granthams.
Now who's autism?
It's a different sort of autism,
Yeah.
like it's not as autistic as I feel. It's not as autistic. Like, actually, that castle nut wasn't reproduced from 1982 to 1983. Therefore, your clone's incorrect.
Listen, that's a serious subject, okay? Don't get me started about castle nuts.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like, I mean, I won't. I won't lie. I do like certain clone guns too. More of the retro clone guns, right? I have an A1 clone, and I have a Black Hawk Down clone. And Black Hawk Down, I did went kind of deep into it, but even then, there's still a few things that I'll never like about it because I never SPR'd it. So I have a extended A2 flash hider. And what else is wrong with it?
That one, you made it pretty close.
I made
I,
it
I'll
pretty
say
close.
it's, yeah,
The flash
it's
hider is one of the only things I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
The lower it probably should be an A1, but it's in that weird transitional phase where A2, A1 and A2 were like both in service. So it's kind of in that weird time period. It got close. I would say that one got really close. The the bigger, yeah, because I even went down and I got a old school scope mount, scope ring, not scope mount. So I went to get an old school scope ring, the right one for that. The A1 is what kind of bothers me because I don't have an A1 lower, and that's that. I think for me, that's what triggers me when I see people. It's like, hey, check out my A1 clone, like or like old like 733 or XM177, and they don't have an A1 lower. That one is like, oh, like I get like it's such a little bit because it's like most people seeing it won't care, but that's the first thing I look at. I look at your lower receiver. I look at if you have a 90-degree or if you have a reinforced
Okay,
magwell.
here's a question that is like one of the biggest clone questions, and I'll get into like why this is such a big deal. Is would you rather see a Colt factory lower, but it's not like A1 like it should be, or whatever configuration it should be, or would you rather see an 80% built into an A1 that has like the trademarks made, but it's not an actual Colt product?
Since it's a clone, it's going to be the 80% for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because like I do see a lot of 80% that are made into the correct, like all the markings, all of the shape and everything is correct to the clone. But some people will argue that like getting an SP1 lower or some other configuration, but Colt factory manufactured is better, even if it doesn't have exactly the markings that would be on the actual like military issued clone.
Oh, I think I misunderstood. So yeah, I would always pick. I guess between the two is I would. My point is I will always pick, um, as long as it's the A1 lower. Like I don't care if it's Colt. Like
Oh, I
because
guess let's
I thought
say
I
okay,
think I
okay, I see.
misunderstood.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought what you meant was like a current production Colt. So Colt A2
No, no,
versus
no,
a
no. I
yeah.
meant like any factory production because
Oh
there's
no
a
no no
lot of
no.
like for example, if you take let's say like an M16 clone and like let's say someone uses an SP1 that has like the same shape but it doesn't say M16 on it. And then you'd have an 80% that has the M16 engravings, it's refinished and it's built off of an 80%. Which one do you think is like more quote unquote clone worthy?
Okay, I get it. Yeah, in that case, for me, it doesn't matter when it gets that far. Obviously, I think the cold SP1 is a little bit better because it's more novel, I guess. But if you really wanted it, like I see the merits in both. The
Mhm.
only thing I don't want to see is I don't want to see an A2 lower. That's all it
Yes.
is. Like
Well,
I
but yeah,
think
yeah, that's outside of the equation.
okay,
I
okay.
mostly ask
Hmm.
because in the clone community, there are some things that are like absolutely taboo, like you don't do if you're like a serious cloner. But then there are also things that across the board, the cloning community typically forgives, even if it's not clone correct, quote unquote. So, like, for
And that's one of
example,
them.
there are some people who, yeah, usually it's the lower, but like for some people, they'll be like you get the guys who get butthurt because like they're missing like a crucial component and they get called out for it, and then they go like, well, your clone isn't worthy because you don't have an M16A1 machine gun transferable lower on your whatever build you're doing. So basically because of that, then like that's the extreme argument. And so then it's just like, does that just mean that cloning is only about having money? Right? Because like
Right.
you can solve any of these issues with money alone. So essentially, what it comes down to is, does that portion of it actually matter? Because I've seen some clones that are very accurate and like everything is almost perfect except for the fact that their lower doesn't have the right markings and it's not fully automatic. So then it's just like, what part of it do you care about, and what part of it is acceptable? And then also, is it about you being happy with your clone or you pleasing other people on the internet about like your build,
Oh man,
right?
that's just another discussion altogether.
I mean, it gets cloning gets super deep, so that's why it's like I don't know. This is very like it's a very difficult topic to talk about.
No, it's a good topic though, because I definitely feel like I flip flop. I'm more, I guess, neutral. I'm more like center about it because I feel like I'm pretty easy. I'm definitely really easygoing when it comes to clone. There are things where I can like kind of like get nitty gritty on, but like for this example, I'm like, yeah, I agree. M16 obviously would be the best, but again, not everybody has the money or the means to get a fully transferable M16, right? So if we don't count that, then as long as you have like an A1, as long as you're happy with it, I think it should be good. Like for me, it's like I want to do the best, but at the same time, there are limitations to what I can
Yeah.
do. Like, I'm not gonna lose sleep over if I don't get, like, the perfect load, right? If I don't get an SP1, whatever, I'll just get an 80%, or I'll get any other, or I don't even have to put code on it, right? It's like and I think this is an interesting example too, just because it's like, if you really if you know your history, you can make the argument, like, there are many companies that made M16s or A1s because, wartime and all that. You had
Mhm.
other people like, what is like, I know, like Harris. Was it Harris? Harris, whatever. No.
I actually don't really know that much about other companies that made M16s.
Yeah,
I know
there's
a
a
little
few
more
other.
about 1911s, but
Yeah, so 1911 is a good example. You have Remington. You have other companies making
Singer,
them. So, yeah,
I
exactly.
think
So
GM, like yeah, there's
yeah,
a lot of random companies.
yeah, I think yeah. So I feel like because it says that one is like whatever. If it makes you happy, and again, if you think other people will be cool with it on the internet, go ahead.
See,
Um,
that's the other aspect of it is like there is a very fine balance between just making the clone that is good for you. Like, I'll give you an example. If some kid who doesn't have a lot of money but is interested in cloning goes out, buys like an LE6920 and then like, puts a bunch of furniture on it and like calls it an M4, even though it's a 16-inch barrel, if you're happy with it on your own, then nobody cares. But the problem is people are like vain enough to post a picture of their gun and say like, "Hey, check out my clone of my M4." And then it's like, well, the problem is really not like whether people like it or not, it's whether you want other people to like your gun or not. Because you were vain enough to post a picture of it in the first place and ask for other people's opinions. So you can't get mad if somebody is crapping all over your build because you asked for it.
Yeah, especially because you use the word clone, right? Now it's like
Yes.
because before you're like, hey, I got a new gun, or what do you think? That's more object or sorry, that's more subjective, right? That's like, oh, I kind of like it, I don't, it's like this is what but the moment you put like clone, I think it like automatically gives people like the impression that it's being graded, like how
Yeah.
correct you are, because now that becomes the objective, right? It's not like, hey, how effective it is, how efficient, like or whatever. Now the objective is, hey, how close are you? You give it like a grade score on how good my clone is when you ask people, hey, check out my clone.
And
Um,
generally speaking, like most people that I've seen in the cloning community are more than happy to provide you with the information. Like if you post a picture of your gun and say, "Hey, I'm interested in turning this into a clone. What do I need to do?" A lot of people will give you exactly the information you're asking for. The tough part about this is a lot of people don't take constructive criticism well, so they get insulted when basically you don't please the entire gun community about your clone, and then you like turn tail and like start to insult people because you can't handle your gun like not being perfect when it wasn't to begin with and you were the one that asked for help. And then like everybody gets this impression that cloners are like just mean people because like we crap on people's builds, but at the same time it's like if you didn't build a Mark 18 or you used all of the wrong components and then ask people to judge your Mark 18, don't be mad about the outcome.
it just feels like tough love to me.
It is very much tough love because if you do a good job then you will be rewarded with people's praise.
I
This is the Asian mentality,
was like
like but
spoken
but
like a
in
true
the
Asian.
yeah. It's like, do a good job. Like, you're shooting for A, not for C's. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I mean that's fair. That's fair. I will
Yeah.
give you that. So all I gotta say to you is your LVAW sucks.
Yes,
Get good.
actually. That's
Get
why I
good.
haven't posted much pictures about it, or I like don't really try to like refer to that too much because it's nowhere close. And the worst thing about I actually didn't even go into the worst part about the LVAW is that there is actually no civilian equivalent. Like SIG and the military obviously keep the actual LVAWs under like pretty tight wrap. So like the system itself, the receivers, the lower and the upper, the rail itself, those are mostly unobtainium unless you have like a connect in the military, and even then it's very difficult. So it's kind of one of those things where like no matter how close you get on the outside, nobody in the civilian world should theoretically have a legitimate LVAW. You can only get very, very close. So, for example, like the closest you can possibly get to it would be an a legacy Gen 1 MCX with the Generation 1 grip. There is a company that makes a clone stock. I think it's I forgot the name of it, but it's like something along the lines of like club foot, but it looks a lot like the Kate Moss side folding skeleton stock. And so a lot of people just use the Kate Moss or the Patrol because those are also seen in the wild. And then there's a company in Europe called Altered Ego, and they make a replica of the original LVAW rail, which was never commercially released. So because of this, it's like you can get very close, but there is no way you'll ever get the real deal. Like there are some, older retro clones where if you do have a tranny M16 receiver, you could theoretically build a gun that is identical to like a GI military issued M16 or Commando or whatever. But for the LVAW, you will never be at 100%.
You just want to be special snowflake, huh?
I mean, yes, but also
You
it's
just
like
want to
it's
flex.
impossible.
You just want to flex on all the pores because that's really all I get out of cloners. It's just like, wow, look how cool I am because I have all the right parts.
But that's the funny thing is that like, the prevalence of flexing on the pores only comes because everybody wants to jump in on this,
No,
right?
I agree. I mean, I joke. I
Yeah.
mean, but again, there's some truth in it. But I
Hmm.
do joke, and like
It is very funny though.
I'm victim to it too. I literally buy parts for guns I don't have just because they're rare and they're
Yeah.
unobtainium.
Yeah.
Like I have a few unobtainium parts for guns I either don't have or don't use like at all, which is I think hilarious.
I wonder how much crap we're gonna get for this episode.
Oh, so much. Like people are gonna be like people are gonna be like you're the problem of the shooting community.
Yes. I mean, that's like all the people who are getting all butthurt over the
And we wear
Grantham video.
and don't forget we wear cat ears.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh wait, what about Grantham?
So Grantham released a new video recently, basically where he tests a bunch of guns
Oh,
in
I saw that.
extreme cold conditions.
I didn't see the video. I just saw the thumbnail because
So
I don't actually
this
watch his videos.
disclaimer, I didn't watch it either. So basically both of us are talking about something we have no idea what actually happened. So like take that into consideration. Like this is your advanced warning before you shit all over us about, whether we're talking about things we have no idea what we're
Dude,
talking about. Which,
I don't care, man. It's like I'll admit it. It's like I I don't know. I can't watch all his videos. Like and when I do, it's like I'll watch the first like 2 minutes or like 1.5 minute is like the cool shooting bits, and then like maybe I see like the intro, and then I'm like, okay, I'm bored. Like,
listen, listen, okay? It's in the name of our podcast. So if you don't understand this already, then don't worry about it.
hey, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Just
So
just the why.
so the general gist that I understand is that he tested a bunch of guns in extreme cold, like ice conditions, right? And apparently like every gun that he used pretty much shit the bed except for like an AK, which like AKs understandably are like indestructible. So like now the funny thing is the gun community is getting super butthurt about one guy's YouTube video. Granted, he is a very large YouTuber, so I do kind of understand that, but at the same time, it's still just a guy making videos and putting them online about stuff about a really specific one-off example that probably does not affect like 99.999% of his audience.
It's fine. He's still not as large as Larry Vickers.
Well, I mean, are we talking physically, or we'll let you come to your own conclusions on that one. But
Oh man.
once again, it is, it is interesting to see this kind of stuff, but also does it actually affect you? But the other thing is MCX destroyed, KAC SR15 destroyed, SCAR destroyed. I'm trying to think of any other notable guns that were out there, but essentially what it is like
I'm
all of the
guessing
guns just froze up and seized.
I'm guessing you tested an AR too, just because it's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he
I
has to
don't know
have,
if he
right?
tested. I don't know which AR he would have tested if he did, but I would say that the KAC is more or less an AR. They're not that different. So it's like basically all the KAC fanboys are getting all mad. MCX guys are making videos throwing away their MCXs, which I'm about to do, and then the Scar boys, are all crying about it too. So it's just really funny because everyone across the board in the gun industry is like crying right now.
I'm looking at. I'm not watching the video because I don't want to, and also I'm afraid if I click on it, it'll get in the audio, and I don't want to record it. So I just went to the Grantham subreddit, and I'm just reading the comments on that post or on that video.
All right, give me some juicy jewels.
TIL that every gun becomes inoperable if you deliberately ruin it and or don't take care of it. Up to that
Whoa,
point, however, AKs and Galil's rule.
whoa! Tell me how
So
you really feel.
I'm guessing he tested a Galil too, and then
Probably,
somebody's comment is just KAC LOL.
yeah.
Shit, better start training more with my AK. It's in quotes. I'm guessing Grantham said that. Oh, some dude in Arizona right now. Oh, never
Yeah.
mind.
It's
So,
so funny because it's like a lot of people are just like, well, time to throw away my whatever insert X gun into here and then like pick up an AK. And then now it is the worst time in history to buy an AK.
oh man, I guess I got to throw my. I think he tested an AUG. I got to throw my AUG away.
Oof. Og,
Somebody,
done.
I could
Done.
be
Out.
mistake. I could be mistaken, but the AUG is a steel and aluminum hybrid as far as the receiver goes, and it functioned relatively well. Oh, wait, it functioned relatively well. Nice.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
okay, we're good, we're good, we're
Og's
good, we're
in.
good.
Og is
AUG's
in.
in,
Og is
AUG's in.
back in. Back in.
Also, I'm pretty sure AUG is all steel as far as the
Mm.
receiver goes. At least I think mine was. I don't know if the new one is aluminum, but I'm pretty sure it's AUG is all steel. But
there was a
AUG is
little
in
bit of
though.
a there was a little bit of a follow-up that happened as well where
Mhm.
apparently the inside steel portions like the chamber area and stuff on the scar like started to rust or something like that, and so like all the scar boys are extra salty about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I see. There's a screen cap. Somebody. Yeah. He did test an AUG. AUG is in easy Austrian
Yeah,
engineering. Let's
noise
go.
smart.
The first, like one of the first bullpup ever, the first space gun, and still
Yeah.
works. Get butt mad, Scar boys.
Yeah,
Um,
so I don't know. That's a very I mean, I've shot in the cold, but I haven't really
I am
actually shot
curious. I am
in a
curious how cold it
really
actually
cold.
was. I don't know. Maybe in the video. Maybe we should probably go in and actually watch the video because we're shitting on it.
Nah.
Okay. Um, I mean, I wonder if he says how cold it is because I've been in very cold situations and I've shot
Well,
in
what's
pretty
the
cold.
coldest that you've taken weapons out and used them in?
So I've been out and about in like single digits. Then I've shot very very cold,
And
well
you were
below
using
freezing.
ARs or
Yeah,
what
we were
kind of
just
guns?
using it. We were just using ARs.
Okay.
So, just their standard M4 pattern, basically.
Yeah.
14 half inch. And it's honestly the gun functioned fine, I think. Most of the issues, it's like we shot a lot, so I think most of the issue was just regular, like shooting a lot and not cleaning, right? Shooting, we're just shooting like basically surplus ammo, just standard ball. We so the stoppages feels like they were just from normal, just dirty gun, just shooting a lot. Maybe it did add to it. Maybe like the frequency of failures did increase because of how cold it was. I bet that has something to do with it, right? Like tolerances, and then you add
What
gunk
kind
to
of
it.
malfunctions were you experiencing?
Failure to feed, a lot of failure to feed, some double feeds,
Do
but
you think that could have been the magazines too?
so I was gonna get to that because that's probably the more interesting because we had a mix of PMags and Stanag mags, and funnily enough, the Stanag mags worked way better than the PMags. Like
Of course.
the PMags almost always when we had an issue, it was always the PMag,
Yeah.
and like
That's the
and
that's what
here's
people talk about that they don't know. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
and here's the funny part about the PMags versus like StagMag. Some StagMag had issues, but it would be gun specific. But if a PMag has issue, it's the PMag issue. So
Mag
you can test it
specific.
on another gun, it will still be an issue. But StagMag,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this has an issue. Then you pop another gun, suddenly it works fine. So like it's not perfectly the StagMag mag's issue. But yeah, so but in a really cold, I would say the mags also have a lot to play. Um, with how well your gun functions. And I think more importantly, less how the gun functions is how you function when it's cold. Uh,
Give us an example.
it's just when you're so cold, like dexterity was a huge thing. Like we were out for I want to say we shot like a few days and we were out there for like 6 7 almost 8 hours some days, and we were just shooting all day basically, and you get so cold that you just basically have no dexterity because you have to pick, right, whether you either wear really thick gloves but then you can't really do anything but at least you're warm, or you wear really thin or no gloves, which is a bad idea. Don't do that. And then but then again you can't do anything because your fingers are so cold. You can't even pull the trigger fast at that point.
Did you
So
use Fuck Long's instructional on gross motor skills?
I was gonna bring that actually. So gross motor skill is that I had a hand experience of actually like realizing gross motor skills very important. Like if you're not even just for cold, right? Like if for whatever reason you have to rely on gross motor skills, I think it's very important that you practice gross motor skills at least here or at least know how to do it. You know how to
Paging Travis Haley.
yeah, like to the point where it's like, instead of using your thumb to hit the bolt release, just slap that shit. Like, fuck it. Just bam on the side of it with your palm. You can't fail because when you get that cold, you can't even feel. You can't like you can like, I think this is the bolt release. It's like, nah, just slap the side of your gun.
Oh,
Um
I got a question. How about using the mag release and using the safety or selector?
that isn't as important. Not or I that's wrong term, not important. That's less of an issue because when you have enough muscle memory, you kind of know where and how much force you need to push in, especially the safety, right? Because if you train with like an AR, right, you know about where it is. So even if you're cold, you can't feel. You know about how much force you need to push in and how much you need to like flick down. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's interesting.
So when it got to that point, you can still feel it, and then it's like you can, unless it's like obviously really, really loud or you have nothing, you can actually still feel the click or hear the click, like the audible, like the little detent going in. So that's something I think it's less important, or sorry, now again, not less important, but less of a problem. Putting it back on safe, now that's much harder, I would say. Taking it off safety, much easier than putting it back on safe. I would say that actually ended up being the harder part because throwing it off safe, much easier shoot, but when you try to, index and put it back on safe, much, much harder. That I did struggle with. And I think a lot of people did struggle because you were like, push it back thinking you put it back, but you ended up not putting enough force and not putting it back. And as far as mag release goes, I think also the same kind of concept where you kind of know, and you kind of know where it is, how much force you need to push into it, and at the end of the day, it's very like tactile, or you have direct feedback whether you got it or not, right? Like your
Mhm.
mag is gonna fall out.
Yeah.
So I think that is a lot less of an issue. But I think, yeah, for me, putting it back on safe and sending the bolt forward is a lot more interesting because like you kind of lose that like tiny like finding the spot basically.
Mm.
So I just ended up slapping the slide of my receiver every time, and
Were you
that seemed to
using
work.
single side selectors or ambi selectors?
Single. So we were just
Ooh,
using, yeah,
that's
yeah.
rough.
So that now you can see why it's a lot rougher trying to
Yeah.
push the selector back into safe, especially when you're doing drills where you're like target acquisition and then putting it back, indexing it, and that ended up being the biggest issue in the cold. Other than just it's just miserable. Just don't ever go shoot. If you can avoid it, just don't shoot. Like just don't ever shoot in the cold. It's just not fun.
It sounds like you have had some experience with the cold.
It's oh, dude, it's not fun. I had to shoot prone in the freezing cold. That was not fun either. If you can avoid it, don't do it. If somebody says, "Hey, it's a cool idea," just slap them upside the head because it's not. I mean, it's a cool idea. It's not a good idea.
It's more like the idea is cool when you drive out to a pit and you like lay down on your stomach for 15 minutes, you shoot like 20 rounds, and then you're like, all right, let's get back in the car, turn up the heat, and get some milkshakes.
So you want to know what's funny? That's exactly what we did.
On the way
In
back?
No. In between
Oh.
drills or when we're on
Yeah.
breaks, like fuck it, get in the car, and then we'll just turn on the heat, warm up, and be like, all right, guys, ready for the next drill. And like, oh fuck, and then we come out and like get all cold again.
Does it
Yeah.
feel better to constantly change temperature or to stay at the same temperature?
When it's that cold, change temperature. Like
Oh,
I'm talking
interesting.
about when it's that cold that it's miserable just being out. I think when it's normal cold, it's like whatever, you get used to it because it's
Yeah.
until you've been in like extreme cold, and obviously there are people that have been in like way colder, like -20, right? I'm not saying like I've been there, but when it gets down there in the single digits, with wind or in the shade or whatever, wind chill, yeah, it's just miserable. It's just not fun.
So, how likely are you to come across a situation where you're going to need to shoot and operate weapons in single digit or below weather?
See, that's why I think, going back to this video is like, how cold is it and why are people that mad, right? It's like, yeah, how likely are people, AK, SCAR, FAL, AR users really gonna be like, hey, like I have to use this or shoot this gun in like, -10 or like
So
10 below.
you're saying there's some merit to you remember the controversy of the people being shown wrapping their fingers around the gas blocks on M4s to aim their guns, but then it's just like that's just to keep their hands warm when it's cold, right?
Oh, you're talking about like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The old Colt poster, like,
Yeah, where they have
yeah.
like two fingers wrapped like on either side of the barrel around the gas block and they're like aiming their guns and then people are like, "Oh, you're going to burn yourself." But then it's just like that's just, the I don't
Uh,
know if that's like an HK mag moment or if that's like actually like a specific type of technique that's taught.
that I don't know, but I will say, the gas blocks are pretty warm and they do make decent hand warmers. As long as it's not too hot, like, go for it, grab it if you're cold. Like at that point, you're just like, whatever. I'll hold on to anything for warmth at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why people are so upset. I mean, I guess I understand why they're upset because they spent all this money, and then obviously the hype is these are the best, most, especially what is the FN, like the most battle proven,
Yeah.
weapons, right? So I can understand why the fanboys are upset that their guns don't
Imagine
work.
Imagine your POV when you spend $4,000 on an MCX and then Grantham tells you the gun doesn't work.
Hey, it's fine. Your gun already doesn't work, so
Yeah, I know. So I'm basically at the same point as I was before.
exactly. So
Yeah.
like
No
it's
harm, no
just
foul.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just happy. August still supreme, man.
So your AUG is now your go-to apocalypse gun.
Yeah, yeah, because in the nuclear winter where everything is below freezing, I guess.
Yeah, you'll be the
Yeah.
only one with a weapon. You and all the AK guys will be out there in the snow fighting.
What are you talking about? The AK guys don't have any ammo because we can't import anymore.
Oof, oof.
I wonder which caliber AK he tested. I mean, I doubt it really matters that much, but
It's a good
five five six
question, but I
five
would
five six
imagine.
AK.
Did he? Is it a
No,
five
I'm
five
just
six eight?
no, I'm just saying
Oh,
if 556 AK, right? Because you can still get
yeah,
ammo for that. So that's like the only
true.
AK worth getting now because
Yeah, I guess so.
762 and 545 are just unobtainium
Hmm.
or surplus ones. So
Yeah,
I guess more 545, 762. There's still a lot of countries that produce and import them.
We're already in the Game of Thrones winter.
I mean, I guess some guy is saying Vidnez or the 9 millimeter, the AK 9 mil.
oh yeah.
Yeah, he's saying, I guess that's the go-to 9 mil PPC
Well,
or
we
PCC.
have a friend who has one and he actually doesn't like it very much. So like that's the interesting part is that like it's the same as an AK, but it's just in 9 millimeter. So essentially what it is like, yeah, if you can deal with that kind of stuff, it's fine. But like, for example, the PSA AKV, which I cannot believe that I'm referring to the PSA gun, but basically that AKV is like an AK that they put some modern spin into. So it has like bolt hold open and like I think like the some of the controls are like more intuitive or modernized so they're easier to use, which is interesting. Like I'm not going to say it's better, but I'm going to say that there are some features that I think is nice, and it uses Scorpion magazines instead of a proprietary 9 millimeter AK magazine.
Hmm. All right. I got interested. I'm watching some of the. I guess it's. I mean, his breath is. I can see his breath, so I guess it's cold. I
You're
mean,
guessing it's cold, like, oh
yeah.
yeah, it might be a little chilly over there where he is.
Okay, so he actually. Okay. So he actually froze the gun. I guess that's the big thing. So
Yeah, I think
okay,
because
okay.
the whole
I
point of the test is it's like a torture test.
Yeah.
So yeah, he wanted to put them in like let's say you left your gun outside in a blizzard.
Oh, okay. So I didn't purposely freeze my gun. So I will preface it that we were just using it and it was cold, but we didn't like put water on it and freeze it. So that is a little more interesting, I guess. But still, what do you expect, Glenn? That's like if I freeze anything, it's not gonna. I can put. Okay, what do you think is the most durable car? Like outdoor rugged car. Like
Let's say Toyota Tacoma.
all right, whatever. Let's say it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like, cool, let's test it in the snow. All right, now I'm gonna put it in a block of ice and see if it works. Of course, it's not gonna work. Like, what did you expect? Like, I guess I don't understand so if nothing else, the test is more like how well does the gun drain water? Because, right? Because if you can drain water, then
So
it doesn't
basically,
freeze.
that's why AK is the only one that's and AUG, I guess, is the only one that's going to work.
Yeah, or I mean, unless it's so cold where the water instantly freezes the moment it touches the receiver, right? But
Mm.
then I feel like at that point, no one is fighting. I mean, I guess if you're getting like winter storm Alaska, maybe I could see it, right? But
Yeah.
like, that's just so petty that like, why are you fighting? It's like it's not worth fighting at that point. It's just like just
I
go
mean,
home.
I heard something about how like Alaska Patrol has like AKs because they come and go in and outside, like basically different temperature changes rapidly. So because of that, they use AKs.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess there is some, like otherwise they probably wouldn't use AKs, like if they didn't have to for some reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. So.
So there may be some merit to this. So what you're saying is that Grantham is true and his word should be worshipped? I mean, what?
I feel like every episode of us is just gonna be bashing somebody.
Probably.
I
I
mean,
mean, it,
last episode we talked about T-Rex arms. So
I guess it's one of those things where it's like I'm less talking about Grantham and more about like the actual
No, I
video
get you.
content.
Yeah,
But
we're talking
yes,
about and mostly the fanboys or
Yeah.
the even the fans and the critics alike. We're making fun of both of them.
I
'Cause
mean,
it's just like
his literal fan base is the Church of Grantham. It's like you cannot get more cultish than that.
that's fair.
The comment section is out of control.
Oh, look. Ian from Forgotten Weapons is the only guy. He's the only guy. He's Gun Jesus. Like he's the one I will follow.
All right. Well,
Everyone else are false prophets.
okay. Well, let's end it on that. So, I guess if you want to continue seeing more of this kind of content and stuff, we're going to try to put out this regular podcast. So, we're on YouTube, probably be on Spotify and a bunch of the other places where you listen to podcasts. Also, you can get a little bit of a sneak preview on some stuff, more of like a behind the scenes type situation on our Instagram at DWAI.videos. And also, we will have some merch coming in the new year. So just stay tuned for that. You'll get most of that information from our Instagram. So just keep an eye on that if you're interested in some of the swag we're putting out. And some of it's pretty fun. So hopefully you can also support us through in that way. Otherwise, thanks for listening to the podcast, and we will see you next time.